Welcome to Midnight Fatal Cases. This channel is about real people, real decisions, and the quiet moments where everything goes wrong. No theatrics to distract you. No easy answers to soften the truth. Tonight's story is a grounded documentary-style narrative about what happens when someone learns how to turn attention into a weapon. Let's begin. Chapter 1, The Hook. At 2:17 a.m., the call did not come through a normal line. It arrived in the back room of the Emergency Communications Center, through a phone that almost never rang. A gray handset in a cradle. No public number. No place on the directory. The kind of line you keep because once in a while, someone who cannot risk being seen will choose sound over silence. The operator on duty that night was named Morgan Hale. Mid-30s. Calm voice. The sort of person who could talk a stranger down from a ledge with nothing but breath and patience. Morgan lifted the receiver and heard nothing. No traffic outside. No room tone. Not even the faint electrical hiss that usually lives inside a line. Just a clean, deliberate void. Morgan Hale, they said, keeping the introduction simple. Emergency Communications. What is your location? A pause. Then a sound like fabric dragged across a microphone. And then finally a voice. Not distorted. Not robotic. Not masked by the cheap effects that prank callers used. It sounded close, human, confident, as if the speaker was leaning toward the handset on the other end, smiling into it. Tell them I don't like lights, the voice said. Morgan's hand tightened around the receiver. I'm sorry, Morgan replied. Who is this? The voice ignored the question. There's a man in your city tonight, it continued, unhurried. He's going to do something brave in about 9 minutes. Morgan's eyes flicked to the clock above the desk. 2:17. The second hand stuttered once, then kept moving. Morgan Hale, they said again, sharper this time. If you need help, I need your address. A quiet exhale. Almost amused. I don't need help, the caller said. You do? Morgan signaled with 2 fingers, the motion every operator knows. A supervisor stepped closer. Another staffer began tracing the incoming line, though everyone in that room understood how unlikely it was that anything about this call would behave normally. The caller kept speaking as if the room were visible, as if they knew exactly who was moving where. You're going to want to write this down, the voice said, because later you'll tell yourself you didn't hear it right. That you misremembered. That you filled in gaps. Morgan reached for a pen, not because they believed the caller deserved cooperation, but because the most dangerous moments are the ones that feel ridiculous until they don't. Go ahead, Morgan said. The caller began to recite a string of letters and numbers, too long to be a phone number, too uneven to be a license plate. It had the shape of something that belonged to a locked room on the internet, one you could only enter if you already knew the door existed. Morgan wrote anyway, because that is what the job trains you to do, hold on to details before fear can erase them. Then the caller stopped. A new sound came through the line. A faint rhythm, as if something was tapping. Once, twice, 3 times. Not a signal. Not a dial tone. More like fingernails on plastic. Then the voice returned, softer now. You hear that? It asked. Morgan swallowed. Yes, that's him, the caller said. He's listening too. Morgan's chest tightened. Who is him? Morgan asked. The caller chuckled, a single low note. I have a name, it said, but you'll give me a better one. You always do. You'll need a story you can tell at dinner parties years from now, when you want people to believe you've been close to evil without being touched by it. Morgan stared at the scribbled letters and numbers on the notepad. Their handwriting had gone small, compressed. I'm going to ask again, Morgan said. Where are you calling from? The voice answered instantly. From everywhere you can't see, it said. From the parts of your city that don't show up in tourist brochures. From stairwells with broken bulbs. From back alleys behind restaurants where the smell of bleach never quite fades. Morgan's supervisor mouthed, keep them talking. Morgan forced their voice to stay steady. Are you threatening someone? No, the caller said. I'm warning you. Threats are for people who want something. I'm just introducing myself. The tapping returned, faster now. Morgan listened and realized the pattern wasn't random. It was counting. The caller spoke over it as if narrating a performance. In a moment, the voice said, you'll receive a file. Someone will send it to an address you keep hidden. You will open it even though you shouldn't. You will tell yourself it's evidence, that it might save someone. Morgan's mouth went dry. How do you know what I'll do? Another quiet exhale. Because you're kind, the voice said. And kindness is predictable when you push on it hard enough. In the background, someone on the floor shouted a name. Another line had lit up on a workstation down the row. A second operator was listening to something with a pale, fixed face. Morgan's supervisor leaned in close. Another call came in, she whispered. Different line. Same voice. Morgan's heartbeat shifted. That sudden sinking awareness that something is wider than you thought. Not one phone call. Not one room. Not one operator. The caller heard Morgan's silence and seemed pleased. See, it said. You're already behind. Morgan kept speaking because stopping felt like surrender. Who are you? Morgan asked, quieter now. The caller waited, just long enough to let the question rot in the air. Then it said a sentence that later, in interviews and depositions and sleepless 3 a.m., recollections, Morgan would repeat word for word. I'm the clown from the Darknet. The word clown should have sounded childish. Cheap. A costume. But in that moment it landed like something sharp. Morgan didn't laugh. No one in the room laughed. The silence that followed was too complete for humor. You're going to think that's a joke, the caller continued. It's not. Clowns are how you teach children to smile when they're scared. They're how you convince an audience to look where you want them to look. A soft sound, almost like a camera shutter, clicked once through the receiver. Morgan stiffened. What was that? Morgan asked. I took a picture, the caller said. Of you. Not your face. Your life. Morgan's eyes lifted to the dark window of the operations center. The city beyond was a scatter of distant lights. Every one of them suddenly felt like a watching eye. That's impossible, Morgan said, but their voice betrayed them. The caller did not argue. Instead, it described a detail Morgan had never said aloud in that building. The scar on your left thumb, it said gently. The one shaped like a crescent. From the night you tried to fix a blender blade without unplugging it. Morgan's hand jerked reflexively, thumb curling inward. The supervisor's expression changed. Not disbelief, something colder. Recognition, Morgan whispered. How do you know that? The caller let the question hang. Then the voice, still calm, still intimate, said, Because you already invited me in. The line clicked. Dead. Morgan lowered the handset slowly, as if setting down something heavy. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Operators stared at their screens. The supervisors stared at one another. Someone muttered a prayer they didn't believe in. Then Morgan's computer chimed. A new message had appeared in an inbox that wasn't supposed to exist. No sender name. No subject. Just a file attached, labeled with a single word. Semi-LE. Morgan's supervisor said, Don't open it. Morgan's hand hovered above the mouse anyway. Because the caller had been right about one thing. Kindness is predictable when you push on it hard enough. And somewhere, in the part of the internet where no one goes by accident, someone was already watching to see what Morgan would do next. The room fractured into motion. The supervisor barked instructions. Someone called the on-site technician. Another operator flagged the second line and began pulling the audio, saving it before any system could correct it into normality. Morgan slid the notepad across the desk, the long string of letters and numbers now looking like a venomous thing that might move if stared at too long. What is that? A coworker asked. Morgan didn't answer. Morgan couldn't. Because even without understanding what it was, Morgan understood what it meant. The caller had offered a doorway. A place to go looking. A place where people vanished behind passwords and aliases and the comforting lie that a screen makes you invisible. Across the room, the second operator, an older man named Eli Grant, kept his headset on, frozen. His eyes were wide and glassy, as if he had just watched something happen in front of him that no one else could see. Morgan stood, crossed the aisle, and knelt beside him. Eli, Morgan said, talk to me. Eli's lips moved at first without sound. Then he whispered, he said my daughter's middle name. Morgan's stomach turned. Eli's daughter had been born 6 months earlier. The name was not on any public record yet. It existed in hospital paperwork and family group chats, and a single embroidered blanket. He told me to listen, Eli said. He said, if I didn't listen, I'd miss the punchline. The supervisor cut in, phone pressed to their ear. We have law enforcement en route. Cyber Unit 2. Nobody opens anything. Nobody clicks anything. If you already did, tell me now. No one admitted to it, but Morgan could feel the pull in the room. The itch behind the eyes. The impulse to know. There is a particular kind of curiosity that lives in emergency rooms and call centers. It isn't idle. It's a survival mechanism. If you can understand the shape of a threat, you can begin to build a wall against it. Morgan stared at the email again. SMILE. The attachment icon sat there like a closed mouth. The technician arrived, breathless, and immediately unplugged the workstation from the network. The screen went black for a second, then came back with a local warning banner. Air-gapped. Contained. In theory, the technician muttered, as if reading Morgan's mind. Minutes later, the first patrol officers arrived. 2 uniforms, then a plainclothes detective with a winter coat still dusted with rain. Detective Rowan Pierce, late 40s. A face carved by long nights, and the habit of not reacting until the evidence forced him to. Pierce listened without interrupting as the supervisor summarized the call. When it was over, he asked, any mention of a location? Specific target? Anything tangible? Morgan handed over the notepad with the letters and numbers. Pierce stared at it, then at Morgan. What is this? I don't know, Morgan said. But he wanted us to write it down. Pierce's jaw tightened. He. Morgan nodded and heard how ridiculous it sounded in their own ears. He, the clown. The Darknet. Pierce turned to one of the officers. Get cybercrime on speaker. Now. While the call went out, Morgan's headset chimed again. Another incoming line. This time a normal emergency channel. A regular citizen. Morgan sat back down, put the headset on, and accepted. Emergency communications, Morgan said. What's your location? The caller was breathing hard. Wind noise. Panic. I'm in the Riverside garage, a woman said. Level 3. There's someone down here and I think he's filming. Morgan's spine went rigid. Ma'am, Morgan said carefully, are you in immediate danger? I don't know, the woman whispered. He's just standing there, but he's dressed like a clown. Not funny. Not normal. And he's holding his phone up like he's waiting for me to do something. Morgan's eyes met Eli's across the room. Eli shook his head, small and frantic, as if trying to deny what they were hearing. Morgan forced their voice to remain even. Can you see his face? A mask, the woman said. White. Red smile. The smile is too big. He's not moving. He's just watching. Morgan signaled to dispatch, 2 fingers sharp in the air. Units. Riverside garage. Level 3. The woman's voice shook. I tried to leave, but the gate won't open. It keeps resetting, like someone's controlling it. Morgan's hands went cold. Stay in your vehicle, Morgan said. Lock the doors. Keep your headlights on. Do not get out. A soft sound came through the line, not from the woman. A faint tapping, once, twice, 3 times. Morgan's mouth went dry. Ma'am, Morgan said, is he close to you? A pause. Then the woman whispered, he's turning his head. Like he can hear you! Morgan felt the room closing in. On the desk beside the air-gapped computer, the file labeled SMILE remained unopened. And yet, somewhere in a concrete parking structure, a stranger in a clown mask was holding up a phone, waiting for a frightened woman to become content. Morgan kept speaking because that was all they had left. Ma'am, Morgan said, tell me your name. The woman hesitated, then answered. Grace, she said. Grace Lynn. And in the background, so faint Morgan almost convinced themselves it wasn't there, a second voice breathed into the line, close enough to be intimate. Good choice, it murmured. Morgan froze. Grace whispered. What was that? Morgan could not lie. Grace, Morgan said, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Chapter 2. Context and People. By morning, the city looked innocent again. Rain had washed the streets clean. Commuters moved in practiced lines. Coffee shops opened their doors like nothing had happened at 2:17 a.m., like there hadn't been a voice in the dark telling two operators the private names of their lives. Inside the emergency communications center, daylight didn't help. Fluorescent panels hummed. Screens stayed bright. Every little sound, an email alert, a chair rolling, a printer waking up, felt like it had teeth. Morgan Hale hadn't gone home. They sat at a break room table with a paper cup of bitter coffee cooling between their hands, staring at the crescent scar on their left thumb. The caller had said it like a greeting, like a proof. Morgan was not the kind of person who believed in fate. Morgan believed in systems, in procedures, in the idea that if you followed the steps, you could reduce chaos to something manageable. That belief was why Morgan had taken this job in the first place. Before dispatch, Morgan had been a crisis counselor on a night hotline. The work was quiet until it wasn't. A voice at the other end, a breath between sentences, a person you might never meet but still had to keep alive until sunrise. Morgan had learned early that panic is contagious. So is calm. The best operators were the ones who could sound like a steady hand on someone's shoulder, even when their own pulse was sprinting. Eli Grant, on the other hand, had come from a different world. Eli was older, broad-shouldered, with a patient face that had the tired softness of a new parent. He had been a paramedic for years before moving inside, trading sirens for headsets after a back injury. In the room, he was known for speaking gently to violent drunks and hysterical teenagers, the same way he spoke to lost tourists. It wasn't performance. It was a habit built from too many nights kneeling in blood and trying to make strangers trust him. Now, Eli looked like a man who'd seen the inside of a trap and couldn't forget its shape. He kept repeating the same sentence in a flat voice, as if saying it enough times might make it less real. He knew my daughter's middle name. The supervisors had sent most staff home after the second call, but a skeleton crew remained. Not because the center could ever fully shut down, and not because anyone felt brave. They stayed because leaving meant sitting alone with what they'd heard. At least here, there were other people to confirm it wasn't a hallucination. Detective Rowan Pierce arrived again around 7 a.m., with two specialists from cybercrime. They carried hard cases and wore expressions that suggested they'd already decided this would end badly. Pierce didn't waste time with comfort. "Walk me through Riverside," he said. Morgan's supervisor brought up the recorded call from Grace Lynn. The audio had been preserved, time-stamped, logged. A woman's voice. Wind noise. A trembling inhale. Then the faintest suggestion of another presence, close to the microphone, breathing words that didn't belong. Good choice. Pierce listened without blinking, then looked at Morgan. "You heard that too on your line?" Morgan nodded. It was like he was patched in. Or like she wasn't alone, Pierce said. They pulled the security feed from the Riverside garage by mid-morning. It took longer than it should have because the garage's network kept dropping out. The manager swore their system had never done that before. Pierce didn't bother responding. He'd heard never too many times. When the footage finally played, the room fell silent. The cameras were cheap, wide-angle, washed out by sodium lighting. But even through the grain, you could see Grace's sedan circling in slow, uncertain loops on level 3, headlights sweeping concrete pillars. Then you could see him, a figure near the stairwell door, perfectly still, facing the lane. The white of the mask caught the light in a way that made it seem like it was glowing. The mouth was a thick red curve that didn't match any human expression. Too smooth, too confident. He lifted a phone, not to his ear, out in front of him, as if he was filming. Grace's car stopped. The driver's door stayed shut. Headlights fixed on the figure. For a long moment, nothing moved. It was a standoff in a place built for forgetting. Then the gate at the exit twitched. Dropped. Rose. Dropped again. Resetting, exactly as Grace had described. Pierce paused the video, leaned closer to the screen, and pointed at the corner. A tiny symbol flashed for half a second. A small overlay that shouldn't have been there. A smiling face icon. "Is that part of the camera system?" one of the cyber specialists asked. The garage manager shook his head. No, that's not ours. The specialist's eyes narrowed. Then someone injected it. Morgan felt their stomach tighten again, that same cold pull from the phone call. The feeling that the rules of the room were bending around an intruder. What happened after units arrived? Pierce asked. Morgan glanced at the dispatch log. First patrol reached level 3 at 2:29. Grace was in her car, shaking. He was gone. How gone? Pierce pressed. Not found, Morgan said. No trace. No costume. No mask. No phone. One of the officers on scene had written in his report that he smelled something sharp near the stairwell, a mix of cheap face paint and disinfectant, like someone had tried to scrub their own presence out of the air. Grace Lynn had been brought to the station for a statement. She was 28, an accountant, no criminal history. She'd been working late at a firm downtown, caught in a deadline week. She'd parked in Riverside because her building's garage was under maintenance, and Riverside offered discounted overnight rates. A simple, ordinary reason to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. In the interview room, Grace kept her hands wrapped around a bottle of water. She spoke clearly, but her eyes never stopped moving. Every reflection in the glass, every shadow on the wall. She flinched at small sounds, like her nervous system had been rewired to expect laughter where there should be none. They didn't chase me, Grace said. That's what makes it worse. He didn't run at me. He didn't bang on the windows. He didn't do anything dramatic. She swallowed hard. He just stood there like he'd paid for the space. Like it belonged to him. Pierce asked her if she recognized the costume. A party. A circus. A local performer. Grace shook her head. It wasn't a costume. It was deliberate, like a uniform. When Pierce asked about the voice she'd heard on the call, Grace's throat tightened. I thought it was you, she said to Morgan later. I thought it was something in the headset. But then I heard him breathe. I knew the difference. You don't breathe like that. How? Morgan asked softly. Grace looked down at her hands. He was enjoying it. That detail didn't make it into the formal report. Not in those words. Police reports had their own language. They turned fear into neutral sentences. They made room for facts, not feelings. But everyone in that room understood what Grace meant. Enjoyment is what turns a threat into a promise. Back at the communications center, the cyber specialists focused on the string of letters and numbers Morgan had written on the notepad. They photographed it, copied it onto a secured laptop, and compared it to formats they recognized. It looks like an onion address, the younger specialist said. Dark web. Tor network. Eli, hovering near the doorway, made a quiet sound in his throat. Disgust or dread? Pierce asked. Can you access it? The specialist hesitated. Not from here. Not on your network. And not without controls. This could be bait. It could be malware. It could be a live stream trap. If we touch it wrong, we announce ourselves. Pierce's eyes stayed on the address anyway, like staring at a wound. Morgan remembered the caller's voice. You will open it even though you shouldn't. A new thought surfaced, one that made Morgan feel sick. What if he already knows we won't? Morgan asked. Pierce looked at them. Explain. Morgan chose the words carefully. He didn't call because he wanted us to click. He called because he wanted to watch us decide. The file, the address, they're props. The older cyber specialist nodded slowly. Psychological operation. Control through anticipation. Pierce gave Morgan a hard look. Why you? He asked. Morgan blinked. What? Why call a dispatch center? Why speak to you and Eli? Pierce said. He could have emailed. He could have posted. He wanted a human voice. He wanted a witness. Morgan didn't have an answer. Not yet, but Eli did in a thin whisper from the doorway. Because we listen, he said. It's literally our job. We can't hang up on someone who says there's danger. Morgan realized then what the caller had meant about kindness. It wasn't just kindness. It was duty. Training. The rules that made society function. The caller had found a way to turn those rules into a leash. Around noon, Pierce received a call from a hospital across town. A man had walked into the emergency department with a deep cut along his forearm. Not life-threatening, but he refused to explain how it happened. He kept asking if someone was filming him. He kept insisting that the cameras in the waiting room were smiling. A nurse reported that he'd been found wandering near an underpass, drenched in rain, clutching a cheap red balloon by its string. When Pierce heard that detail, his mouth tightened. "Did he say anything else?" Pierce asked. The nurse's voice crackled through the speaker. "Just one phrase, over and over. He told me to be brave." Pierce ended the call and looked at Morgan. At 2:17 a.m., "Your caller said a man in this city would do something brave in about 9 minutes, Pierce said. "That was before Riverside. Before Grace. Before any of us knew to look." Pierce assigned units to review recent missing persons, assaults, and suicide attempts for unusual threads. Costumes. Balloons. Strange messages. Anything involving recordings, unusual websites, or anonymous payments. That evening, as the city slid back into darkness, Pierce sent a secure request to a federal liaison for resources. Cyber warrants. Network tracing. Anything that could legally pry open a door built to stay shut. And in a small evidence lab, behind locked doors and strict protocols, a specialist finally cloned the attachment labeled Smile onto an isolated machine. They didn't open it yet. They only measured it. File size 38.6 megabytes. Creation timestamp 2:17 a.m. Exactly. As if it had been made in the instant the phone rang. Morgan sat in the communications center, headset on, eyes fixed on the clock. At 2:17, the gray handset rang again. Morgan lifted the receiver. "Emergency communications," Morgan said. "What is your location?" Silence. Then very softly, a sound like a smile forming. "The Mavao, Chapter 3, Escalation." The gray handset rang for the third night in a row. Morgan lifted it on the second ring. "Emergency communications," Morgan said. "What is your location?" Silence. Then the voice, close enough to sound like it was speaking from inside Morgan's headset. "You're getting faster," it said. "That's good. The audience hates dead air." Morgan's supervisor stood behind Morgan's chair. Detective Rowan Pierce stood near the capture station. Two cyber specialists watched a waveform in real time, as if the shape of the voice could reveal its origin. Morgan kept their voice level. "If someone is in danger, tell me where." A soft, satisfied exhale. "No one is in danger," the caller said. "Not yet. We're still in the part where everyone tells themselves they can stop it." Morgan asked, "Who is the audience?" "People who like to feel brave," it said. "People who like to feel clean while they watch someone else get dirty." Morgan's stomach tightened. "Are you streaming something?" The caller didn't answer directly. "Do you ever wonder what you sound like when you lie to yourself? When you tell a stranger, help is on the way, and you know the street is too far, and the ambulance is already busy," Pierce mouthed, "keep them talking." The caller continued. "I like your city. It's full of people who keep secrets and call it privacy. That contradiction makes good material." Morgan forced the question. "Tell me your location." "You already have it," the caller said. "I gave you the door." Morgan glanced at the onion address sealed in evidence. "If you step through," the voice said, "you'll see what you're actually part of." Pierce leaned in and spoke for the first time. "This is Detective Rowan Pierce. You threaten citizens. We're investigating." "Stop." A pause. "Ah," the caller said, like Pierce had become interesting. "You have the voice of someone who still believes consequences are real." Pierce didn't flinch. "Who are you?" The caller ignored the question. "I'm going to give you a gift because you showed up on time." The line clicked dead. A second later, the evidence lab phone rang, an isolated line that should not have been reachable. Dana Sloan lifted it with gloved hands and put it on speaker. "I don't like lights," the voice said, "but I love laboratories." Dana's expression didn't change. "This line isn't public." "Neither is the address I gave you," the caller replied. "Open the file." Dana didn't move. "Open it now," the caller said, warmer turning sharp, "and you'll get one name. One location. A chance to save someone before the audience votes." Pierce made the decision. "Open it." Dana double-clicked the attachment on an isolated workstation. The screen filled with black. A loading icon appeared, a small smiling face. And then video. A concrete room. A chair. A young woman sitting too still, shoulders tight, breathing too fast. Her eyes were red, wet. Off camera, the caller's voice spoke softly. "Tell them your name," she swallowed. "Nina." Text appeared in the corner, like a live stream overlay. Viewers, 1,842. Below it, a poll. Brave or quiet? 2 percentages shifting, slowly, like a tide. Dana's voice tightened. "This is a packaged interface." "He's mocking us," Nina whispered. "Please, I did what you said." "I joined." The voice off camera cut her off. "You joined because you wanted to feel something. Don't blame me for your hunger." Under the poll, new text appeared. "Unlock hint. 5,000 watchers." Dana snapped, "Where is she?" The caller's voice returned through the speakerphone. "Ask the audience." Morgan stared at Nina's face, the violation of being witnessed without consent. "He's growing it," Morgan said. Dana understood instantly. "He wants us to broadcast." "Yes," the caller said, pleased. "You have authority. If you share it, people will come. People will watch. People will vote." Pierce's voice went hard. "We're not feeding this." "Then you'll miss the hint," the caller replied. Morgan leaned forward. Nina's eyes flicked toward a corner of the room. A safety sign, industrial. White with green. A partial logo, 3 stacked waves. Javier enhanced the frame. "That's the Harbor Water Authority logo." Pierce was already moving. "Units to harbor water. Now, quiet approach." The caller sounded delighted. "You found the hint." "Good. That means the audience gets a bonus." The poll vanished. A timer appeared. 2 o'clock counting down. On screen, Nina mouthed 2 words without sound. "Help me." Then the video cut to black. And the caller whispered, intimate as breath, "Now you're watching." Chapter 4. The Turning Point. The countdown did not wait for sirens. Morgan watched the city map fill with units converging on the harbor facility. Pierce issued tight instructions. Perimeter first. Assume surveillance. Assume traps. The caller, calm as ever, threaded through the room. "Everyone always rushes." "It's adorable." Morgan asked, "Why her? Why Nina?" "Because she hesitated," the caller said. "People who hesitate are honest. They tell you what they want without meaning to." "What did she want?" Morgan asked. "To be seen," the caller replied. When the timer hit 0, every monitor flickered. A new feed appeared, overriding permissions as if they were suggestions. Nina was still in the chair, and the clown stood behind her. Up close, the mask was worse. White matte surface. Red smile too wide, eye holes black and deep. Not playful. Declarative. Gloved hands rested lightly on Nina's shoulders, not restraining, claiming. "The vote," the caller said, "was decisive." Nina flinched at the word brave when the caller spoke it. But no violence came. Instead, the clown placed a small metallic device into Nina's hands. Dana's voice cracked. "That's a pressure trigger," Pierce swore. "IED?" Dana shook her head. "Not explosive. Infrastructure. Valve controls." The caller confirmed it. "She's holding a switch. If she squeezes, something opens. If she drops it, something opens." Morgan's stomach dropped. "What opens?" "Water," the caller said. "Or what's in it," Nina sobbed. "Please, I'll do anything." "You already did," the caller replied, almost gentle. Morgan broke protocol, voice turning personal. "Nina, listen to me. You're not responsible for this. Whatever happens, this is not on you." For a fraction of a second, Nina's eyes flicked toward the camera. She heard it. The clown froze, like the script had been disturbed. The caller's voice sharpened. "Careful. You're not part of this scene." Morgan didn't stop. "You don't have to prove anything. You wanted to be seen, I see you. We all do. And this ends with us, not you." Alarms sounded faintly in the video. Footsteps. Shouting. A door slamming open. Police. For the first time, the caller sounded irritated. "End transmission." The feed cut. Pierce's radio crackled. "Suspect fled." Masked individual escaped through secondary conduit. "We have the victim. She's alive." Morgan exhaled like the air had been locked in their lungs for hours. Alive. Then the caller's voice slipped through once more, soft, close. Well done. You chose empathy. The audience hates that. The line went dead. Morgan understood something with terrible clarity. This wasn't over. The clown had lost control of one scene, but the stage was still standing. Dubai, Chapter 5. Fallout and Discovery. Nina left the harbor facility wrapped in a gray emergency blanket, hands shaking as if they had forgotten how to unclench. She asked only one question, whispered to a paramedic. Did people see? The paramedic hesitated, then answered carefully. Yes, but you're safe now. Nina closed her eyes and stopped crying, like her body had decided tears were too expensive. Relief didn't arrive cleanly inside the communications center. It came in fragments, in shaky exhales, in chairs scraped back too fast, in Morgan's hands realizing they were numb. The city issued a boil advisory. Water intake was halted until testing confirmed contamination levels. The caller had not poisoned the water. Not this time. But the systems showed how close it had been. Dana explained it without drama. He didn't need explosives. He needed access. If she dropped the device, a valve opened. If she squeezed, a different valve opened. Both led to release points. Low level at first. Enough to panic. Enough to prove reach, Pierce nodded. A rehearsal. Yes, Dana said. And a demonstration. Cybercrime mapped the onion address. It led to rotating mirrors, indexes nested inside indexes. Some pages were blank. Some displayed only the smiling icon. Others hosted comment threads, usernames without faces, reactions without conscience. Brave quiet again. More Dana traced transaction trails, fragmented cryptocurrency movements that didn't look like profit. They looked like ritual. This isn't about money, Javier said. It's about participation. Police searched the harbor facility for hours. They found the chair, the camera mount, the pressure device, disarmed and set aside like a prop, returned to storage. They didn't find the clown. They found footprints leading into a maintenance conduit beneath the city, old, undocumented, not fully mapped even in municipal archives. The trail vanished into standing water. The mask was never recovered. Grace Lynn accepted counseling. She never returned to Riverside Garage. I keep thinking, what if he's still there, she said, just waiting for someone else to notice him. Eli Grant took leave. Then he never came back. Morgan visited him once. The house was too neat. Baby toys arranged with care. She smiles when she sleeps, Eli said about his daughter. I watch her mouth to make sure. Nina survived physically. Psychologically, survival was more complicated. She refused to watch the footage. I already know what I looked like. I don't need to see it from the outside. Her accounts were scrubbed. Her name kept from the press. Fragments still leaked. A screenshot here. A rumor there. Context removed. Consumption preserved. This is how it spreads, Dana said. You don't need the whole story. You just need a symbol. 3 weeks later, a man in another city turned himself in carrying a handwritten note. I didn't drop it. I held it like he said. No device. No video. Just the note and the smell of disinfectant on his clothes. The clown was still active. He had changed tactics. Dana compiled a profile that avoided cliches. He understands systems, she said. Technical, social, emotional. He exploits points where responsibility blurs, where people can tell themselves they're only watching. Pierce added, he doesn't want chaos. He wants choreography. Morgan realized the quiet truth underneath it. He wants witnesses, Morgan said. Victims are replaceable. Witnesses are the product. Weeks later, the gray handset rang again, not at night. At 11:43 a.m. in full daylight. Morgan lifted the receiver. You're still here, the voice said. Good. I hate recasting. Morgan's throat tightened. What do you want? I wanted to see if you'd answer, the caller said. That tells me the story worked. You failed, Morgan said. She lived. Yes, the caller replied. And you learned. This ends, Morgan said. Stories don't end, the caller said. They get abandoned. Or they get sequels. I'll let you decide which this is. The line went dead. On Morgan's screen, an internal alert blinked once, then vanished. No file. No address. Just a system log entry that hadn't been there before. User watching active. Morgan leaned back, heart pounding. The clown did not need to call anymore. He had already taught them how to listen. Defracker Chapter 6. The Ending. After the last call, the gray handset was removed. A technician unplugged it, wrapped the cord, and carried it out like obsolete equipment. The cradle stayed behind, an empty shape on the desk. The silence it left was worse. Morgan stayed on duty. There were offers, time off, reassignment, training work where danger lived only in hypotheticals. Morgan declined. Not out of bravery, out of recognition. The job no longer felt abstract. It felt watched. The investigation never produced a name. No arrest. No press conference. No clean ending. The task force grew, then thinned, then folded into other priorities as budgets shifted and attention moved on. Dana transferred to a federal unit that specialized in emerging digital harms. She and Morgan spoke once more over encrypted video. "He's still out there," Dana said. "But he's quieter. That's worse." "What do you mean?" Morgan asked. "He doesn't need spectacle anymore," Dana said. "The idea exists. Other people are trying to copy it. Badly. But the shape is there." The clown had become a template. Rowan Pierce retired earlier than planned. "I spent my career believing if you followed the trail far enough, there'd be a person at the end of it," he told Morgan. "This one feels like a reflection instead. You chase it, and all you see is yourself running." Nina moved away. She didn't say where. Her last message was brief. "Please stop calling me a victim. I survived." That's not the same thing. Eli never returned to emergency work. The city adapted. Security audits multiplied. Systems hardened. Drills became routine. And something else changed, quieter and harder to measure. Calls increased where no emergency was clear. People reporting they felt watched. People asking if someone could see through their phone camera without the light turning on. People describing strangers who stood too still, who smiled too long, who seemed to be waiting for permission. Most of the time, there was nothing there. Sometimes there was. Morgan learned to hear the difference. The clown never called again. Not directly. But small things surfaced. A private forum using the same smiling icon as a reaction. A short clip posted and deleted within minutes, showing nothing explicit. Just a person sitting very still, breathing too fast, eyes fixed slightly off camera. A comment beneath it, always the same. "Brave?" Morgan stopped clicking on anything that asked a question. Late one night, Morgan took a call from a teenage boy alone in his car. He said he was scared. He said someone online told him to wait somewhere dark, told him people were watching, told him it would mean something if he stayed. Morgan listened. Morgan didn't rush. Morgan didn't say, "Help is on the way," until it was true. When the call ended safely, Morgan stared at the dark reflection of the monitor. For the first time in months, the system log was clean. No hidden entries. No unexplained pings. Just the hum of machines doing what they were built to do. Morgan understood then what the clown had been trying to teach and why it had been so dangerous. Attention is a currency. Witnessing is participation. Silence can be an act of resistance. The clown wanted an audience. What he feared was a room full of people who knew when not to look. Outside, the city slept. Lights on. Lights off. Millions of private lives, unrecorded, unshared. Somewhere in the dark corners of the internet, there were still people waiting for the next show. But the line stayed quiet. And for now, that was enough. If you stayed until the end, thank you for listening. These stories take time to write and tell with the seriousness they deserve. If you want to support the channel, subscribe to Midnight Fatal Cases. And if this case stayed with you, share your opinion in the comments. What do you think about this story? Where do you think responsibility begins and ends? Until next time, stay aware. Good night.